I'm Diego Martinez, and this is CHOONS, a podcast about the songs we vibe to. On every episode, we go through an underrated music anthem from its beginnings to its undying legacy, with the testimony of the people at the heart of its creative process. Today, we are boarding the D train with James D. Train Williams and Hubert Eaves III, who will be sharing their memories of the landmark 1981 single, You're the One for Me.
You start feeling my spirit, and my spirit projects into your spirit. And what happens is I go inside of you without even your knowledge of me going inside of you, and we become connected.
People would always tell us, hey man, this song got me through this, or me and my girl or my guy, this was our song, and to this day, we still get that. That's what music should do. It should touch people in a way to make them feel.
"1981 was the year that saw some of music's biggest transformations. The way we experienced music as a whole was forever changed with the launch of a 24-hour video channel called Music Television, or MTV for short. And the advancements in technology paved the way for emerging acts that fused glam and romanticism, like Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, and Soft Cell. Shalamar, Luther Vandross, and Imagination gave us the heart and soul we needed after 5 long years of a disco hangover. But even with all of this, nothing sounded quite like D-Train. This highly influential mix of gospel, R&B, electro, and funk was the product of a prolific collaboration between New York singer James D. Train Williams and Minnesota-born keyboardist, producer, and songwriter Hubert Eaves III. Together, they recorded 5 studio albums and placed singles in the dance, pop, and R&B charts during the first half of the 1980s. Their songs have been featured in video games and sampled by everyone from the notorious B.I.G., N.W.A., and Faith Evans to The Prodigy and Brothers in Rhythm. James and Hubert's paths took them in different directions towards the end of the 1980s, but they remain connected by the sheer respect they have for each other and the thing that brought them together in the first place: music. In the case of James, as it is with the greatest singers of our time, that love for music began in church.
I was 6 years old, and I was singing in the choir at Washington Temple Church of God in Christ in Brooklyn. And all of a sudden, they picked me to sing a song, Oh No, I Can't Turn Around Now. And it came with steps. I can't turn around now. I felt like Tina Turner when she was a child. Ever since that day, and I saw the reaction of people laughing and smiling and feeling good in church, I grew up with that. And then years later, at 13, 14, 15, every time somebody passed in my family, it was like, well, call Jamesy boy. He needs to be the singer at the funeral. And I became the funeral singer. No, not the wedding singer, the funeral singer. And every time you die, it could be a cousin, aunt, uncle, call James. So they call me up, and I'd have to sing for somebody's funeral. And it's the same thing today. I'm 59 years old. When people die, they call me. I'm like, oh boy, this is starting to get old.
Inspired by the stylings of early idols like Walter Hawkins, Andre Crouch, and the Winans, James kicked off his gospel singing career at the age of 15. He made his first professional recording with Grammy-nominated singer and composer Reverend Timothy Wright on a song called The Victories and the Praise, which became a local hit in Manhattan. His Christian upbringing singing for the Lord not only gave him strength, but also the ability to project emotions to his audience. It's as if you could feel his spirit through every single note. James took that conviction from gospel to secular music and even commercial jingles, which he recorded after his years with D-Train.
want to save souls. I grew up as a Christian. So you want to save souls. You want to reach somebody's heart. I used to sing in missions when I was like 9 and 10 years old. We used to go to the prisons. And I used to sing up at Comstock, Dannemora, Sing Sing, Rahway, you know. And these prisoners would look at this little kid singing these songs, and some of them would cry because I was singing. And that was when I realized I could reach people. And when I sang in church, people would cry and fall out in the Holy Spirit. I didn't know what that power was. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew it was something that was more powerful than me. So I approach everything with that same spirit of adaptability. By doing jingles, I learned how to take that gospel and put it into a pop song, and take it and put it into a country western song, and take that same spirit, because what happens is when you do that, it's all spirit. You start feeling my spirit, and my spirit projects into your spirit. And what happens is I go inside of you without even your knowledge of me going inside of you and projecting my spiritual aspirations, and we're connected. And then once I finish singing, you take me home with you. And everything that you felt, you go, man, wow, that felt good. And that's my job until I die. It's to make you feel everything that I feel in here. I have to make you feel it, or else I didn't do my job.
James's God-given talent didn't spare him from facing major challenges growing up in Brooklyn, including being the target of racist attacks. While attending Erasmus High School, he also fought his way through the football field, beating out 6'7" senior students with an aggressive bull-like drive. That technique earned him a spot on the team as a defensive tackle, and a nickname that simply stuck and began to define him.
These guys are all American, all stars. They're laughing at me. They're like, this guy wants to join the team. Oh, God. Okay, let's give it to him. And they started running plays my way. And the first play they ran my way, I split the gap. I hit the fullback in the backfield and knocked him into the quarterback. Okay, now we got to get for real. We can't let him do this to us. The coach was like, he's not even a senior. This kid's a junior. He's a rookie. What did you let him do this to? So they all got mad. And when they got mad, they ran the play again with two guys coming at. And these are all seniors, big dudes. And I knocked both of the seniors to the side and hit the fullback again into the quarterback. And they were like, oh, no. So then after practice, because I was huffing and puffing like a train and stuff, they didn't know what to call me, like a bull. They were like, we're going to call you D-Train, man. We're going to call you D-Train. And it stuck with me ever since.
The second half of D-Train, Hubert Eaves III, found his calling in a different place than James. It wasn't exactly in the company of gospel singers wearing robes, but it gave him the confidence to stay on the right track and skill up as a songwriter.
I was playing in a strip club, and so the strippers would come in and they all were dancing to the same songs, and everybody knew those songs. But this one particular dancer said to me, she said, you know what, I'm tired of these old songs. I want something original. And I said, well, okay. She said, I don't care what it is, just something weird and sexy. So I went home, thought about it, and I just started writing this song with that in mind. And I just called it Weird and Sexy at the time. It was the first song that I had really written seriously. Anyway, I took it to the club about a week later, and that night I was off, but I gave it to the singer, and then, I had wrote it out, and then, so she gave it to the band as she danced, and I stood there in the doorway and watched them dance to my song, and I almost had tears in my eyes because I was like, she's dancing to my music. This is mine. This is what I created this, and that just did it for me. Just seeing the band play it, and not that it was a great song or anything like that, but it was mine, and it was the first time that I could say, wow, I wrote that.
From writing songs performed at strip clubs, Hubert went on to play keyboards for funk and soul group M2Me. Band members James M2Me and Reggie Lucas helped record tracks for Hubert's first solo album, Esoteric Funk, released in 1977. He collaborated with musicians such as Carlos Garnet, Renee McLean, and Will Downing, and it was in the studio working with Downing, aka the Prince of Sophisticated Soul, and not in high school, as it has been reported, that Hubert first met James Williams and shared the original idea behind the song that launched D-Train into the world.
Will Downing. He asked me if I would help him put together a project and help him with his project. And I said, yeah, sure. So I invited him over to the studio. He came over and we went through a song. We worked out the song. And then he said, you know what? I have a friend of mine that would be perfect for backgrounds for this. I'm going to call him and bring him in for backgrounds. That happened to be James. They were going to school together. So anyway, he brings James in. I get him to do the background parts. And when I hear his voice, I'm like, oh my God.
And so Hubert said, well, listen, man, can you come over to my house? And, I got some music I'd like to work with you on. I said, okay, cool. We took exchange numbers. And I went to his house. He said, I got this song, man. I said, well, what's the name of the song? Well, listen to it, and then I'll tell you. And so he puts on the tape, because back then it was like a big cassette tape and a big reel-to-reel. So it goes, I'll stand up on the cloud, shout out loud, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. So then he goes, no, man, so I don't have anything else after that.
When James came over and he heard it and he just instinctively, and started writing. The next thing you know, with this new love I found, take my feet up off the ground to fly away. And that's James. That's like, come on, man, bring it.
And we wrote You're the One for Me in about maybe 45 minutes because it was just coming out of us. That was when we knew that together we could ping pong off each other with ideas. So we always worked well together, and it was always fun going to his house, recording in his studio. Sometimes the demos sounded better than the finished product. But I love the creative process that we had with the two of us. When I was 19 and he first met me, he said, I'm going to give you a pulpit, and you're going to preach in that pulpit for a long time.
There were times when I had to decide on which take to use for a particular thing, and I would go crazy because he was always coming up with stuff, and we were perfect together. It was just the kind of thing where, because I came from jazz, as a result, nothing is the same. We're always constantly creating things, and that's the way he is.
James credits Hubert's mastery of the keyboards, especially the Prophet 5 synth, as the key ingredient of both the demo and the finished master of You're the One for Me. Both men still hold on to those instruments that helped create this and other D-Train classics.
Once I bought the Prophet 5, I just loved playing it. I loved programming it. I just kept working and to the point where I made them my own. To this day, I'm still proud of those sounds because they were original sounds back then. And to this day, I've been offered money for people to purchase those sounds. I would never sell them. I never know when I'm going to need them or want them again. And plus, they're mine. I still have my Prophet 5. I have the original Prophet 5 that I did You're the One for Me on and all the early D-Train stuff. So anyway, I was messing around, just playing and grooving and having fun. I knew that it felt good because I'm not a singer. I couldn't put what I was hearing on there. And I don't know that I would have heard what James came up with anyway. So, but I know what I heard as far as the track.
Most of D-Train stuff back then was the genius of Hubert Eaves. I think when we went in to do You're the One for Me, he had 3 to maybe 4 keyboards. People didn't realize everything you heard in terms of keyboards on D-Train records was Hubert. And he would take days to do this. If he didn't like a bass sound, it might take him a week to come up with a bass on the Prophet 5 because back then you had to program the sounds. It wasn't like keyboards came with stock footage, stock sounds. But when he heard a certain sound in his head, Hubert was that person that would dig in like a mad scientist and start doing different things until it was perfected. And then when he heard what he wanted, he'd go, okay. And he would record it. That's why it came out the way it did. The special sauce in D-Train, absolutely Hubert Eaves III, and his brilliance and genius as a keyboard and as a songwriter.
And you know what? He's not wrong. I totally agree. But without him, it doesn't work either. So I give him the credit for, the other part, because there are people who are going to be singing when they're not listening, when they're walking down the street. They're not singing the keyboard parts necessarily. They're singing what he's singing. So, it took both of us.
With D-Train, you got the combination of gospel and projecting vocals with a jazz musician who could play his off, and funketeer. He was just a funky. It's like having Bootsy Collins and Herbie Hancock all rolled up into one. And Hubert. With the love I have inside of me, we can turn this world around. We can live through all eternity, and we never touch the ground. We'll take a chance to ride upon the star to a place that far away. The light of love will shine on us forever and a day.
Surprisingly, this unique combination of sounds left record executives dazed and confused when Hubert shopped the song around. Some even suggested taking James out of the track and replacing him with another vocalist.
People were trying to say, well, I got another artist that I can put on it. I like the music. And I was like, are you crazy? No way.
That's what Capitol and records like EMI label and Columbia Records told him. It's too loud. We don't like it. It's too fast. It doesn't work. He's not a real singer. I heard it all. And he would come back and he would tell me he was honest with me. It didn't hurt my feelings because I knew what we had.
When I took it to Prelude, they immediately was like, oh my God, what have we got here? And François was the one who heard it first. He said, oh my God, do you hear what we got here? This is something totally different. But they heard it and they knew what to do with it.
That François that saw the song's potential was French-born DJ, producer, and remixer François Kevorkian, considered as the forefather of house music. Hubert says that Kevorkian's hand at the mixing booth proved crucial for the song's success.
He put up my song up against somebody else's production. And he said, I want to hear the difference between how we can, put the two side by side. And I remember fighting with him. I said, listen, man, my song is my song. Somebody else's song is their song. I don't want to be compared, to that. And he said, no, listen, we just need to find out if we got too much bass, if we got too much treble, we need to A-B it. And I was like, A-B? He said, yeah, just to make sure that when it gets on a record and a record player and the speakers, it doesn't boom too much or it doesn't hurt your ears. And we just need to make sure that it fits. And once he got that through my head, and I said, oh, okay, I understand. Because, and at that point, so I'm just saying, so, you need a team of people. You need people that can help you along the way, because sometimes you can get in your own way. And I was about to. I had the track, everything was there. But, you need them finishing touches on it, too. And that's where François came in.
Once You're the One for Me was officially released on Prelude Records in late 1981, New York DJs knew they had hot wax on their hands. Jellybean Benitez, a resident DJ at the Funhouse, was the first to play the record to a massive response from dancegoers. And he soon wasn't the only one. Two other men made special contributions in breaking the track: Paradise Garage's Larry Levan and legendary radio programmer Frankie Crocker.
Well, Frankie, he actually used to play it when it first came out. And I remember he was so invested in it that he actually hired us to open up for Chic, our very first gig. And that was produced by Frankie. And Larry was just crazy. We used to go down to the garage. Man, he would just throw remixes on and throw things in there that we never even imagined and drive people crazy.
I never forget the first time I went into the Paradise Garage and Larry was spinning and Hubert just had the demos. We had just did it. We didn't press it up yet. And he took it to Larry Levan at the Paradise Garage. And Larry was like, okay, we're going to play this record tonight. And Larry put that song on. It was like somebody lit a match in the middle of the dance floor. And people started running because Paradise Garage had a movie theater. that people were going to. It had a phone booth that people used to make out in. Everybody just came running to the dance floor like there was a fire in every other room, and it was like, oh yeah, baby, what's that, girlfriend? Let's go. And it took off.
And he brought us to the garage a couple of times to play live, which, at that time, bands weren't doing that. So at the garage anyway, but I think we were one of the first, if not, I don't know how many others did it. I'm not sure, but I know we were one of the first.
The 12-inch single of You're the One for Me debuted at number 53 on Billboard's dance charts for the week ending December 19th, 1981. It took 6 weeks to reach the top, where it stayed for 3 more weeks. It wasn't just the U.S. that caught a ride on the caboose. Next stop was Canada, Mexico, and the entire European continent, where James and Hubert enjoyed tremendous popularity, appearing on the BBC's premier music show, Top of the Pops, and other major events.
We did Top of the Pops the first time, myself and Hubert. Sting and the Police were on there doing Synchronicity. I've done Top of the Pops 4 times. I'm probably one of the only artists that's done Top of the Pops 4 times, Soul Train 5 times in 2 countries. I did Wembley Arena with GLC London Against Apartheid when they were trying to free Nelson Mandela in South Africa. And it was a big concert, almost 20,000 people at Wembley Arena, 1985, D-Train, Third World, and Shaka Khan. In America, we're tolerated. In Europe, we're appreciated. So you want to go where you're appreciated and not tolerated.
For Europe to take it the way that they did, we were totally surprised, and we loved the fact that in the clubs they loved us, and they showed us love. They gave us so much love, and they would come up to us and tell us how the song affected them. Every time, no matter where we went, people would always tell us, "Hey man, this song got me through this," or me and my girl or my guy, this was our song, and to this day we still get that. That's what music should do. It should touch people in a way to make them feel. And sometimes it's sadness, but even if you make them feel, if the intent is to make them sad, then you're doing what you're supposed to do. If the intent is to make them dance, make them dance. If the intent is to make them listen, make them listen.
In an attempt to keep the momentum going in Europe and bring more life into their first hit, Prelude Records paired D-Train with British multi-instrumentalist Paul Hardcastle in 1985. Hardcastle, who had just enjoyed an international hit with the song 19, covered You're the One for Me for his solo project a year earlier. For his so-called Labor of Love remix, he revamped D-Train's original with enhanced drums and new synth lines. And though the remix landed within the top 15 in the UK, it is not one of Hubert's favorite D-Train moments.
To be honest with you, I was pissed off about it. Sorry, Paul, nothing personal. I was pissed off at the record company because I figured, how dare you take my song or our song with James and have somebody change what it is. He changes the bass line and he changes the solo and he changes the drums and all. And I'm just talking about my first reaction. And so I was really pissed about it, because I just didn't think that was right. And so anyway, I understood later why they did it. The sound was bigger. The drum sound was, more aggressive. Obviously, Paul was hired to do his thing, and that's what he did. He added what he thought it should be, and he still gave me respect in that he kept some of my main parts and so forth. So I understand that he was caught up in that, and it's still a business. But I was really, I say it again, pissed at the choice that the record company made to do that.
We're not ending this episode on a sour note, but rather with one more proof of the eternal appeal of this classic track, which has inspired some of the greatest musicians that ever lived. Case in point, Paul Hardcastle wouldn't be the last person to cover D-Train. In fact, just 10 years ago, back in 2011, the Purple One himself, Prince, brought the house down with his own rendition of You're the One for Me, performed on comedian George Lopez's late-night show, Lopez Tonight, with assistance from his band, The New Power Generation.
I get a call from a guy who plays keyboards for Prince named Morris. And Morris goes, D-Train, Prince wants your blessing. And I was like, Prince who? He said, Prince, the Purple One, wants your blessing. He's going on George Lopez tonight. This is George's last show. He's going to sing You're the One. He wants your blessing. I said, oh, tell him he got my blessing. And then I said, but I didn't do it alone. Tell him, here's Hubert's number. Call Hubert and get Hubert's blessing too. He said, okay. So he called up Hubert, got Hubert's blessing also. Prince went on George Lopez, and you can see it on YouTube, and killed it. He killed You're the One. He absolutely killed it.
These days, both James Williams and Hubert Eaves III are staying true to the D-Train spirit through their individual projects. James, now based in Las Vegas, is preparing the release of his 7th studio album called The Other Side of the Tracks. Hubert, on the other hand, is also working on a solo album, his first since his 1977 debut, Esoteric Funk. He named it Eavesdropping, a play on words with his surname and the eclectic mix of styles he's featuring on the record, including jazz, R&B, dance, and even rap. Whether they're alone or back together as the twosome that gave us burning tracks like You're the One for Me, James and Hubert will keep on moving and shaking generations of music lovers just as they did 4 decades ago.
Well, I'd have to dip into the world of Taylor Swift. Best song ever! I mean, and that's what I would say, because what happens is it keeps me relevant. It keeps me on stages 40 years later. It keeps me international. It keeps people wanting to know what happened to D-Train. Where is D-Train? And my new music will encapsulate that and create a new status for me. I'm doing this music for me, for my love of music, for my love of character, for my level of character. I want to bring my music to the table. And if the world loves it, cool. And if they don't, cool. You get to the point where you don't need permission. I don't need permission to sing. I don't need permission to write my songs. I don't need permission to sing my songs. And that's not ego. That's just, right now, music to me is more of a spiritual journey, because I'm in the second, not only the second half of my career, but I'm in the second half of my life. You want something to leave behind. So I'm glad that at this stage in my life, if I were to kick the bucket, which I don't plan on kicking it, I don't have any shoes on to kick it with. I don't want to hurt my toes, but at least in history, in terms of history, I've made some type of a mark on the world.
I couldn't have done, there wouldn't be D-Train without him or me. It was a combined effort, and we had a lot of fun. We loved doing it, and to this day, we still love each other. We still do whatever we can, but you know, there's a point when you got to do your own separate thing. So that's the only reason why we're not, still talking D-Train with Hubert and James today. But that, doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to always be. Who knows?
Thanks to James D-Train Williams and Hubert Eaves III for their contributions to this episode. And thank all of you for tuning in. CHOONS is a series of music memoirs produced and hosted by Diego Martinez. My executive producer is Nick Fresh, and my audio engineer is Adam Fogel. If you want to join the conversation and see exclusive content related to this story, be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at CHOONSPod. That is CHOONSPOD. Rate us and give us a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. See you next time as we examine the legacy of musicians and their songs on a new episode of CHOONS.